Hey everyone, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering people through storytelling and education, and I'm so glad that you're here today. If you didn't catch last week's episode and you know someone who has had like a NICU experience or anything like that, definitely go back and listen to it. Plus, there's some pelvic floor therapy tips in there as well. So that is a good episode to catch with Dr. Heather Evans. And today we have Dr. Z on the podcast. She's a child psychiatrist, a mother of two, and she created a super awesome company that I'm going to let her tell us all about. If you're listening, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, leave us a review, share with your friends, and always reach out to me to let me know what you want to hear and who you want to have on the podcast. All right, we are going to dive into this episode with Dr. Z. All right, everyone, I have on Dr. Zabina Bhasin, and she is a child psychiatrist, a mother of two, and first-generation American, and a diversity and inclusion expert, which I'm super excited to talk to you. She founded an awesome company, which I'm going to let you talk all about and share, and we're just going to dive into it. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Me too, especially like when I found out just talking to you beforehand and getting to know you a little bit, and then how you have a passion for helping to educate kids about different cultures and to foster inclusivity. I think that that's so amazing, and something that, like I was saying before we got on, I grew up in like small town Nebraska. And although I was taught to like love and accept people and to be kind, I hadn't really dealt with other people. I wasn't really exposed to other cultures. So how do you take just being told that, into like being confronted?
Any parent is out there saying, hey, go be racist.
Right.
Or go be mean to someone. I mean, unless there's an agenda in there. You do have people in this world who there's fear of other people. I don't like to say there's hatred. I think people have a fear of an individual or a race or a persona of someone. And I think they don't understand it. And that's why there is hate in this world. I think if we start educating one another and doing this, I don't think any parent is like, hey, look, my child's prejudiced or my child's a racist. Like nobody wants to raise their kid that way. And I don't think, and kids, as you know, we're not born it. We're taught everything. We learn everything. We see everything. We look at our parents, the people who are raising us, the adults around us, and we are sponges and we take it all in. And that's what happens. Now, exposure in a little town, Nebraska, no, maybe you weren't, but that doesn't mean you're not accepting of anyone. It doesn't mean you don't want to open your mind to people. So why is it important? Because we live in a melting pot in the United States. That's why it's important. Somebody's going to come out of a small town, Nebraska, and go to a major metropolitan city in the United States, and you're going to see all walks of life, that have different colors of their skin, have different backgrounds and traditions, have different sexualities, have different, way of looking, some are, men dress up as women dress, like you're going to see so much, and you're going to go like, my eyes are open to this. And if you're already open to it and accepting and belonging of it, then as a child, you've not seen this, but you're like, oh, I'm interested. I want to learn more. I want to educate myself. But it's having an open mind, and I think that's what we are trying to do as parents is we're trying to open our mind to our children, give them a global platform to say, hey, there's so much to learn. There's so much to be educated about. And there's so many people in this world that we want to understand so we can give acceptance and belonging, and I mean, I'm going to back up. The reason this all happened was because I was raised here in Southern California, and, everyone's like, oh, you're from LA. It's so diverse. Yeah, it is. But people still aren't nice. Yeah. Just because you were born in Nebraska or I was born in LA, people aren't accepting of you. They still don't understand you as a person or as an individual, as they look at you as, what the color of your skin is or who you are. So they start making judgment towards you. And that's what happens as children because our parents aren't educated about other people, and we need to start doing that. So I was extremely bullied as a child in elementary school. It's funny. I had a post on Facebook, and, I don't really deal with my social media a lot, but I go on it sometimes to go check out what's happening. And I saw a post that somebody said, Z, I remember you in high school, and I remember people loved you. You were so sweet. You were so nice. But I do remember being bullied myself, and I don't know if you were bullied or not. And I said, it's funny. Everyone looks at bullying as like aggressive or this piece of like, you're going to get beat up or, making fun of someone, tearing them down with their insecurities, making fun of them as a person, their traditions, their cultures, putting oil in their hair and making fun of them. That's a sense of, and I don't want to say bullying, but it's hurting a human being and their feelings. And you're judging them, and then you're internally making fun of them, and they're having these self-esteem issues and these insecurities. And that child at 11, 12, 13 in middle school and high school still feels it. Just because you're not saying it's bullying, my name is Zabina. My coach named me Z in basketball. But people used to call me Beaner. I'm not Latin American. First of all, that's disgraceful. But the girls who did it to me thought it was funny. And I wanted acceptance from them, so I went along with it because I didn't know any better. And these are things that make a person insecure and have self-esteem issues because you're trying to be accepted into some group or something, but you're not realizing you're hurting yourself and you're being treated badly. That in itself is bullying. And we don't want our children to make fun of anyone. We don't want them to look at memes and say, oh, Asian people are like this, or Black people are like this, or Caucasian people are like this. Like, I also don't like the Karen. What is it? Karen and Becky? What is the new name that they call like?
I know the Karen. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, there's another one because I'm watching something in Canada that they're making a movie about this. I think that's rude. There are Asian people named Karen.
Yeah.
There are Black people named Karen. Like that's prejudicial. Somebody, you're making fun of someone based off of somebody else's assumptions and situations. And we're not supposed to be teaching that to our children because guess what? If we're going to keep doing this, we're going to keep repeating the world that we're in, and we're not going to give them a better tomorrow. So I was bullied. I went through a lot of frustrations, and I grew up, and then I became a doctor, and I decided I'm going to do things in healthcare, and I had children, and I decided I wanted to be involved with my kids. So I started doing stuff in their school, and then I started realizing nothing's changed. I went to their preschools. There was diversity of kids, but nobody understood one another. Nobody talked about it. My kids weren't getting bullied, but I was just noticing there was no education. I have a 12 group of moms when I was, my first one was born, and we're all educated women from different backgrounds. And I realized none of us knew each other. We knew each other superficially and we were great friends, but I didn't know where somebody was from. I knew somebody was Persian or they were Caucasian or they were Black, but I didn't know where they're from. What is their history? What is their story? What is their culture? Like one of my best friends whose parents she thought were European their whole life. They actually come, like they have a Ukrainian background. They have like some sort of Indian background in her. And I was like, what? Your great grandmother was Indian? Like she started discovering her ancestry. And her husband's Latin American. And there's just so much history there and so much storytelling and so much culture that you don't even see it. You just look at the person and be like, oh, that's who you are. My name is Zabina, which is a very Pakistani Muslim name. But heritage and my parents are from India and we're Sikh. So a lot of Muslim friends I have, they're like, oh, you're Muslim. I'm like, no, I'm Sikh.
Yeah.
My kids have a Swahili name and a Jewish name.
Yeah.
Imara and Zain. But they are Indian and they're half Hindu and half Sikh because my husband's Hindu.
Yeah.
It's this perception that we constantly have. So I was watching my kids and I saw all this and I was like, okay, nothing's changed. I'm 40 something years old and my kids are going through the same thing. And I'm like, what's happening? Why are there? So I started creating, like I wanted to learn about everyone's culture and traditions and bringing it into my home. We have a Thea. She's from Guatemala. She's basically raised my kids. I have another friend of mine who helped me raise Amara, and she's from Wisconsin, and she comes from a Caucasian background. And there were so many things. I'm like, let's start doing this. Let's teach them. And then my friends started asking me, where are you getting this from? Where's all this? I'm like, I go on Amazon and I collect it and I create these little things for my kids and I bring it to their schools and I teach them about Diwali and Holi and all of our traditions and cultures. And then I was like, more than my traditions and culture, I want them to learn about everybody else's traditions and cultures. Because how do I make them more global citizens, more worldly, more educated to one another, so that my children don't go in and say, oh, it's, this tradition, I know about this. So I don't want them to make fun of someone or something they culturally do. Like I put oil in my hair and I put oil in Amara's hair and my kids' hair every Sunday. And Monday, sometimes it lays in. I used to get made fun of for that. Mm-hmm. Oh, you have the smelly, stinky coconut hair. But it's actually really good for your hair.
It's super healthy for your hair.
Turmeric's the thing. I'm sorry. We've used Hugly and turmeric since I was like born. Okay.
Right.
Massages for babies came from India. Like I don't need to say this, but it was made fun of in my day. Mm-hmm. And now it's like people use it as like, it's like this product for everyone, I'm loving it. But we're not educating everyone behind it. Like it comes from South Asia, or it comes from Africa, or it comes from Australia. We need to teach our children about this.
All right, we are going to take a break from this episode to talk about one of my favorite companies. You guys already know what it is, and it is Kindred Bravely, my most highly recommended clothing company for pregnancy and postpartum. They even have amazing labor and delivery. And what I love about them is that their mission is a comfortable bra in every nursing mother's wardrobe. Their bras are amazing. I'm actually wearing it right now, as I am usually wearing one of their bras. I'm wearing the sports bra one right now. I have the gray one and the black one, and I love them both so much. I'm more of like, I guess more of a sports bra kind of gal, or like a bralette kind of gal, than like actual bras. So I love the nursing ones that they have in the options, and they're super comfortable pajamas, which I am obsessed with. They have super soft fabrics, including bamboo and organic cotton, a variety of sizes, including a lot of busty sizes for E through I cups. Not all of us, but some of us grow a lot in that area during pregnancy and nursing. And they have everything from comfortable to cute and versatile. I'm obsessed with their Louisa pants as well. I have 3 pairs that I interchange and just rotate throughout the week. But they're beautiful and flattering. They have really nice labor and delivery gowns. So make sure that you go check them out. You can buy it for a gift for a friend, get a gift card, or for yourself. I've literally been living in my Kindred Bravely sports bra and pants since I was pregnant with Jovi. So over 2 years now. So visit kindredbravely.com and use discount code Miraculous20 to save 20% off your purchase. Save 20% off your purchase when you use discount code Miraculous20 on kindredbravely.com.
So I started creating these kits, and I was like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to start teaching our kids about Guatemala. We're going to teach our kids about, European nations. And I started doing it, and my friends were like, oh, this is really cool. And I started bringing them in my home and saying, my friends, let's do Diwali together. Let's do Holi together. And then I started thinking about it, and my husband and I started talking, and they're like, do you know how many parents would love to learn about other cultures and traditions? Mm-hmm. Not country. Country is very different. Mm-hmm. That's geography. I'm talking about the essence of a human being, where their heritage is from. When I started my research before I launched In Kids, which I haven't even told you guys what In Kids is, but I'll get to that, I wanted to know what America was about. And all we are is a melting pot of 50,000 diverse cultures.
Wow.
50,000. And that was, I think, a 2012 census that I saw. Imagine we're in 2022 now. So I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. There's no such thing as an American. We're all from different places of the world. But that's what our forefathers did. Mm-hmm. They brought people from all over the world, or people from all over the world came here for some sort of safety net, some sort of dream back in the 1600s, whatever. And they created this. There were other people who came in different ways, which we don't want, mm-hmm. We have to recognize that was also wrong, mm-hmm. but we're creating that. We're learning our history. We're learning our ancestries, and we're going to fix what was wrong done to other people, whether it was Black Americans, whether it was Chinese Americans, because there were slaves brought from all over the world. Right. It wasn't only, Africa. It was all over the world. The railroads were built by Chinese people. Let's not forget that. Mm-hmm. Asian people built that. So we wanted to make sure that we understood the cultures of this country. So I was like, okay, this is amazing. There's so much to learn, I'm excited. And we couldn't I wasn't traveling yet with my kids because they were so little. And I was like, I need to start bringing this in. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to kind of create these things and see what parents think about it. And I decided, okay, what are we teaching? We're teaching culture and tradition. More than culture and tradition, we're teaching acceptance and belonging. Mm-hmm. And to teach acceptance and belonging, you have to understand diversity and inclusivity.
Yeah.
So there's this little pot which has diversity and inclusivity, and that diversity and inclusivity comes to, we have to understand the cultures and traditions of individuals that can give the big picture on top of the bowl. You want to put the little cover, which is belonging and acceptance. Mm-hmm. And that's the eventual goal, is to teach belonging and acceptance. Because if we teach that and we get that, then we will have a better future for our children.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So then In Kids got launched.
Yeah.
And In Kids came because my husband and I sat down and I had this idea. So if you talk to any of my friends in the entrepreneurial world or anywhere that, I'm idea queen. I will give you ideas all day long. Mm-hmm. But when I came up with this idea for myself and for what I wanted to do, I told my husband, I want to teach people acceptance. I want to teach, he's my partner in crime for everything I talk about. And he knows when to shut me down and he knows when, okay, this is a good idea. Let's do this. And he said, that's amazing. He goes, do your research, figure out who's out there. And there weren't many companies. There was Little Passports, Hola Amigo, Little Global Citizens. And they taught a lot more of geography. I wanted to teach the essence of traditions. Mm-hmm. Because I grew up with so many different people with different diverse backgrounds. That was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I want my kids to learn that too. Which taught me acceptance. Mm-hmm. And I understand that a child's brain, as early as 2 years old, starts recognizing things right away. Mm-hmm. So if you're giving them stories and you're giving them music and you're giving them foods, you're already showing them different things. Parents should introduce new foods to children at 2 years old as you're giving them. Introduce them to sushi, introduce them to Indian food, because it's okay. You know why? Because in those countries, they actually do that.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with it.
What do you think they're feeding, their kids in their country?
Right. If you're in Japan, you're eating sushi at 2, okay?
Right.
It's not oh my God, there's mercury in it. There's billions of kids in Japan that are eating that, come on, guys. Give them spicy food at 2, give them at 18 months, give them at 5 to 6 months. In India, at 5 to 6 months, you're already eating the spices. Mm-hmm. It's normal, mm-hmm. Along with breast milk, along with anything you're introducing. That's what we do because, and I'm sorry, we have 1 billion people in India. Right. So we're surviving, but that's how you expose children.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, so let's start exposing them to culture and traditions as early as 2 years old. Mm-hmm. Obviously we need parents to help us with that. And then guess what started happening? Parents started learning because they weren't exposed to it. Mm-hmm. So then I said, okay, we're going to create a company. We're going to do this. I knew nothing about being an entrepreneur. I was like, what am I doing? I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this. I'm going to put all this money into it. And my husband was like, oh my God, I have a CPA as a husband. So he's a finance guy. He's like, whoa, stop. You can't do like this. And I was like, no, this is easy. You just get boxes, you get materials, you go and, source things. And he's like, wait a minute, you can't do this. This is so expensive. And then I learned, I went to med school. Nobody taught me how to be a businesswoman. And in those days, doctors were not good business. I don't know about even nowadays, but I know in those days we weren't taught how to run practices or, we had to learn. And so I started doing this and creating this. And there's an essence and ethos of my company that I knew what I wanted. I knew what the mission was. I knew what my vision was. And I said, I'm just going to keep building off of that. Mm-hmm. We've had many changes. And so In Kids was an inclusive kids company. We're all about inclusivity. We're all about diversity. Mm-hmm. And everybody is an In Kid, whether you're a kid, whether you're a teenager, or whether a middle schooler, or you're an adult, because everyone's part of the club. Mm-hmm. There's nobody who is exclusive in us. And it was really important for me to understand why that name had to come, because I was always not part of the club, not part of the cool kids. not part of the thing. And I was always left out for some reason or another. And I didn't want anybody ever left out again. Didn't matter who you were, where you're from, what you are, disability, non-disability, color of your skin, sexuality, originality, whatever. You're always part of the In Kids Club because you're included. You're a kid at heart always. And we're making that change through play. So In Kids is a diverse and inclusive company that is making a change through play for everyone. Mm-hmm. You know, it's really important as a psychiatrist, I always say adults have to play too. Mm-hmm. Some point or another in our lives, when we have children, we come back to playing again.
Oh, for sure.
It's not easy for everyone to do it, but we do. Mm-hmm. So we're making that change through play.
Yeah.
And we're teaching acceptance and belonging.
Mm-hmm. That's so amazing. As I mentioned before we started, like I've traveled a lot and like I love experiencing other cultures. Like that's why I wanted to travel, not to like just, I'm going to take a picture in front of this cool swing in Bali. You know, I'm like, what do they eat? You know, like how do they live? And so I got to experience staying with a lot of people. And it was so amazing. I remember, this one time I was in Morocco. And the guy who was driving me around was like, I want you to come to my house. And I was like, okay. And so I did. And his wife and his mom made food for me. And then they like sat me down.
Food.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So good.
Oh, yummy.
and he was explaining to me how they do like family living. Like his parents live on the first floor. He and his wife live on the second floor, his brother and whatever, like on the third floor.
Joint families, right. Very common.
Yeah. And they made food for me. None of them spoke English except for him. Oh. And their kids were like sitting on my lap and laughing. And it was so much fun. And they didn't like sit down and eat with me. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and eat by myself. He's like, oh, you're a guest of honor. Like we made this food for you. And like, just like such cool, like experiences that I had. And they were a Muslim family and like with different cultures and religion and experiencing that kindness. You know, like as a Christian American white girl, you're told certain things about different cultures, especially, you know,
religion,
right. And religions and things like that. So actually traveling and experiencing it and the kindness that I was shown in different Muslim countries that I went to and the kindness that I was shown just traveling around and really experiencing other people and cultures and Buddhism and, you know, like whatever it was, wherever I was such an amazing experience that like I would love for my kids to learn about it and to like you said, not just know like, oh, there's people with different religions, different colors, whatever. Right. But I think that there's this
of it, right. To understand the essence of it.
But I think that there's a fear if you have a certain religion that if you're teaching your kids about this religion, then they're going to become that. You know what I mean? Or that they're going to be like, oh, now we're saying that this thing is whatever. And so I feel like there's like a fear of teaching them instead of being like, no, like when you come down to like the basis of any of the religions that we've talked about, they all talk about actually loving other people. And
that's all they talk about.
Right. And accepting
your neighbor, creating belonging. And I think religion is a little it's a whole different topic, to be totally honest with you. I think I try to be very particular and stay away from religion when it comes to In Kids and really teach culture and tradition. Some of it kind of comes together and I totally understand that. Like I had a friend who said, oh, are you going to do a Ramadan box? And I said, you know, I love Ramadan. I think I could do a social media post for it. I could teach people about it. I don't think I can do a box for it. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you why. Because it's a religious piece to do. And we did Nowruz, which was very Persian, but it's celebrated by many different religions. And it's a cultural event. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to separate that religion and culture piece because some traditions are, and I get it. Hence why we don't do a Christmas box. Mm-hmm. We don't do an Easter box. We are going to do an American Jewish box, but we're going to teach all about American Jewish culture. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not really Shabbat and all of that. We're not getting Hanukkah and all of this. We're teaching about the culture And it's very different than many cultures. And there's so many parts to the American Jewish culture. So I think that's where you have to have a fine line. Yes, religion teaches fear, especially if it's in any religion. But it also teaches, and it's fear is the people teaching the fear.
Right.
Religion doesn't teach the fear. It's people teaching fear. Religion teaches love, acceptance, and belonging. Mm-hmm. Any religion, like you said. But I think culture and tradition teaches people essence of their lives, who they are as a person. Mm-hmm. Because I'll tell you one thing in my culture, in South Asian cultures, is you're very different at home. And this was for my generation. I don't think for my children it's like this, but you're very different at home and you're very different outside. Because society at that time was very Caucasian, and how do you become this American? And at home, I had to be very South Asian and very Indian. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to blend the two. Where my children don't even have to blend the two. They're like, oh, we speak Spanish. I'm learning Chinese at school. I'm learning Mandarin, at school. And I speak Punjabi and Hindi at home. And we do all these great things. And I go play soccer. And my daughter's in musical theater. Like, she's blending her life. And she talks about Bollywood. And she talks about, doing The Little Mermaid and Encantos. And they speak better Spanish than I do. Mm-hmm. But that's integrating your life. Mm-hmm. I went to Catholic school. I went to an all-girls Catholic school for 4 years, mm-hmm. being a Sikh girl. But I had to integrate my culture. Mm-hmm. My mom in elementary school came to my school to teach about my religion and culture, and it made a vast difference. But it taught me how I needed to not only represent who I am, but teach people who I am. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I wanted to teach them religion. I wanted to teach them me as an individual, as what makes me. Now, does my religion make me? Yes. Does your religion make you? Yes. Because we are taught that. So being Sikh, one of the things, like you said, teaches is belonging and acceptance. Today's Vaisakhi. So I don't know when you're going to air this, but today is April 14th. It is a big auspicious day for Sikhs. It has a religious meaning to it. It has a cultural meaning to it. But Vaisakhi is also celebrated by so many people in Punjab. By Christians, by Muslims, by Hindus, by Sikhs, by people even in the UK and Canada that are non-denominational from any Indian religion. Mm-hmm. Because it's a celebration of the harvest. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a big celebration in Punjab. But so it has a religious antidote to it, right? But it also has a fun-filled, enjoyable antidote. And Punjabis are, we're known as celebratories. We go out and dance and party and, but that's what I'm trying to say is there's that piece of taking culture and tradition and really saying, okay, yeah, there's a religious piece to it. Well, we can teach it to you, mm-hmm. but don't judge us on that. Judge us on us as people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
actually, don't judge us at all. I should take that back. I meant to say, get to know us, accept us as a person and people.
Yeah, that totally makes sense that kind of the religious aspect isn't there. Because that's the thing that came up for me was that's where you would see the fear come in, or the hesitation for people to maybe teach their kids about other cultures. Whereas, like you said, there's so much more than just that. I'd love for you to talk about because you're a child psychiatrist. So how does that play into all of this?
So when I started thinking about what we were wanting to do, I wanted to know how the brain development would help the younger generation. Because our kits right now are for anybody for 3 years and above. Probably a younger 11-year-old, but 3 and above. And early education for children between the ages of 3 to 7 years old is really a place where you can mold the child and understand and give them depth and understanding. And it's not even education. I mean, I'm looking for the word and I think it's just, I can't find it right now, but it's brain development mm-hmm. to what you're teaching them. Okay, let's talk about the basics that we do when we're always as moms looking at, ooh, put this music on, put Baby Einstein on, do this. Well, let's read a book about Nowruz. Let's read a book about Black history. Let's read a book to your 4-year-old about Diwali. Let's read a book about Chinese New Year. Let's read a book about things that are culturally relevant to other people. Let's listen to Bollywood music. Let's listen let's go watch the ballet. That's the, Chinese ballet. Expose them to culture and tradition, because it's the same thing that we're doing in their mental capacity as their brain is developing as early as 2. So the psychiatry behind brain development, emotion, education, also seeing things that they like, colors. They start recognizing nose, hair, differentiation of colors, and you can actually show them how much we are similar than we are different as young as 2 years old. So that piece of my education came into this because I understood it. But I had to evolve from it to keep thinking about what does diversity and inclusion mean as you get older. Because a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old has no clue what diversity and inclusion means. What they know is what they see, what they hear, and what they feel and touch. So each one of our kits had sensory items in it, had, reading books in it, had crafts in it, has, toys in it. Everything that the development of a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old would need on a STEM, on a STEAM, also on a level of as they grow their brain development. But we're giving them a new aspect to it other than what Montessori does or what Lovevery does. We're giving them a broader aspect, and that's culture and tradition. So that piece of it, I understood. One of the things that I realized is when we were practicing back in med school and all that, we learned that when you want to get an emotion out of a child, what do? We tell them to draw a picture. We tell them to sit here and tell us a story. We tell them to talk to us about what they're thinking. And that's how you know where their development is going, what their emotion is, what they're seeking. So if we're introducing to them as early as 2, 3 years old, these aspects of culture and tradition, guess what starts happening? You get to middle school, you see a decrease in bullying. You get to high school, you see a decrease in prejudice. You get to a level where you can actually understand the mental health of children as well, because you're seeing the making fun of, the memes, and all of that go away. Because you're starting them in early preschool education.
Yeah. And I think that you brought up something at the very beginning of the podcast, which I think is a super important aspect as parents to notice in your kids, is how you said, like, people would call you names and like you kind of went along with it and laughed and whatever, but that it's not funny. And I think, I'm sure that that's something in parents where they're like, oh, their friend likes it, their friend thinks it's funny. And it's like, no, like, we need to do better as parents and teach our kids that, okay, maybe they are laughing, but that doesn't mean that it's okay.
I mean, you have to recognize as a parent what's wrong and right. And I know we all don't have a lot of time in the day, but we have to take that 20 minutes in the day to actually recognize that. I don't like to put pressure on parents. We all have different things that we need to do, but we have to raise adults. We're not raising kids. I know it's so, we say, oh, we're raising my kids. Guys, we're raising adults.
Yeah, that's true.
So tomorrow when they go in the workforce and they go in there, somebody says something to them, especially as a woman and as a minority, or we shouldn't be minorities more. I think all of us are now minorities, really, because there's no majority in this world anymore, or this country, but we need to have our girls stick up and be like, you are not calling me that. That is not my name. You know, and I think that's what we have to recognize is we're raising adults. So we as parents have to step up. And I always say on a daily basis, you have to feed your children, right? At some point or another, taking that 10, 15 minutes with them and having a conversation saying, you know, my mom would have said, well, why did she call you Beaner? And what was that? I mean, my mom thought it was funny too, like you said, right? She was like, oh, okay, your friends are being funny, you know? And I'm like, no, it's fine, Mom, it's cool, it's whatever. But internally it wasn't. I was trying to be accepted by them in the wrong negatory way. They were not my friends.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, we have to be more aware of these things. And we just have to spend that 15 minutes a day with our kids. Even in middle school, right? And even in high school, I think we have to recognize that. Just because our kids are older doesn't mean we stop having conversations with them. I say there's 3 C's that we have to do with our children at any age. It's creating conversation, building confidence, and having family communication. So if it's not you who has the conversation as a mom, they're going to talk to a sibling, or they're going to talk to a cousin, or they're going to talk to a friend. So you have to make sure your family knows also. Like, I remember, this is a bad analogy. We had Bruno, our dog. This is before I had kids. And one of the things Rakesh and I decided to do is, as we were training Bruno, and it's sad, please don't think I'm comparing our children to dogs, but there's a piece of it there, I said, everybody has to be on page with Bruno, how we're training him. So if we're going to do this, everybody, my in-laws live next door. My husband's uncle lives across the street. So we're all kind of, we live in the same area. And then I would tell my mom this, or I would tell, when you come over, if Bruno does this, you say, no, Bruno, you got to, but it's the same thing. I'm going to tell my brother-in-law, for Imara, I want you to make sure you have, if she says something like this to you, or come to me and tell me she's having these conversations with you. Yeah. The close-knit people in your life with her. My best friend, Emily, she calls Mama Emily. So I want her to, if she says something, the girls say something to I want her to come to me and say that. It's that piece of, if it's not you having the communication, it's the communication of the surrounding world around you. Right. So you're building conversation with your children, you're doing, you're building confidence in them, and then you're having a communication in the circle of your world. Right. Yeah. And I think then it's like, it's hard with that circle, because sometimes you don't always get to choose it when it's family. So that's a whole different conversation, but yes. So like trying to make sure, you have to do your part in the home. Yes. 100%. Well, it's the 20 minutes a day, or it's the 15 minutes a day, I say. That 15 minutes makes such a difference. When you sit down to feed your kids and you're making them food, turn off the TV and have them sit in front of you while you're making it. Yeah. Or sit at the dinner table for that 15 minutes and start a conversation. Right. Or walk into the room just to talk to them. Make 15 minutes. It doesn't matter at what point. I mean, these are just suggestions for me, but make 15 minutes a day and talk to your kids. It makes a huge difference. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the habits do start young, like you said, yes. But it's never too late to change. No, absolutely not. Right. I mean, you could start at 11 years old. You can start at 15 years old. Right. We as adults are constantly changing. Yeah. I started a company at 41 years old. I left medicine and decided I wasn't going to go back to healthcare. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a company. Oh my God, my family flipped out. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. What are you doing? I'm like, no, I want to do this. Now I am in Nordstrom's. I am on Maisonette. We're about to be on Target and Macy's. We're being B2B. I'm spreading the message of belonging and acceptance, and I want to make sure everybody feels included. Yeah. That's amazing. You can do it anytime. Right. Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I mean, you just listed a few places where people could find your box. Where could they learn more about it, and where can they find and follow you? Yeah. InKids is at www.inkidsco. So it's INKIDZco.com. And you can find us online at Maisonette.com, Target.com, Macy's.com, Nordstrom.com, and we will be in store winter 2022 at Macy's. Okay. Macy's Toys R Us. That's what it's going to be called. Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah. And I'll put the link to the website and everything like that in the show notes so people can easily find you. And I was browsing some of the boxes, and it looks so cool. It's like such an amazing, like I said, I love culture and I love learning about people. So I don't think it is just for kids. Right. And everyone, we're going to do all the cultures and traditions and countries that we can. We're just 2 years old. We're still a baby company. So we're working through it. I get all these emails. Have you done this one? Have you done this one? And I don't know if any of you know, we have a Ukraine kit. We're working with a nonprofit, and all the proceeds for the Ukraine kit go to the nonprofit that works with mothers and children who have been displaced because of the Ukrainian situation. One of the reasons we wanted to create the Ukrainian kit is because there are so many amazing displaced people coming into our country, and we would love all of you to be educated on the language, on the traditions, on the cultures, and also it's a very simple kit. We have downloadables as well that whenever you purchase again, it's a option of donation that you can give for the downloadables, and they will all go to the Nonprofit Voices of America, who helps mothers and children who have been displaced from this Ukrainian situation, which has been heartbreaking for any of us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'll include the links, and so people can easily find that and learn more about you. I'm so grateful for this conversation with you. I think that it's such an important topic. I think that it's so important that our kids, learn about different cultures so that we can be inclusive and that we can, help people feel like they belong and have our kids feel like they belong. Like, yeah, we're different from these people and that people, but we still belong here. We're still included here. And I think that is such an important conversation. So thank you for the work that you're doing and for coming on the podcast to share about it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I loved being here.
I loved my conversation with her. I'm so grateful for her coming on the podcast, and we ended up chatting for quite a while off the air. I feel like that always happens with people. We'll start a conversation and I'm like, wait, let's just start recording because we're going to say something that I wish was on the podcast, but it happens at the end too. I'm like, okay, thanks for coming on. And then we end up talking forever about other things. But I really did enjoy my conversation with Zabina and just all the insight that she offered as well. And just talking about the importance of having conversations with our kids about different cultures and people and being inclusive. Because I think all of us down at the core, I mean, we really just want to raise kids who are kind human beings and who are loving. And the way to do that is to teach them about different people so they know how to respect and love and create space for them. So I'm just really grateful for her coming on. Make sure you check out her company, In Kids, and share this episode. And I love you guys, and we will talk to you next week.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.